So behind me is something that I never thought I would see, and it's a new album by Sparklehorse. Sparklehorse formed in I think the early '90s, put out their first album in 1995, Viva Submarine Dixie Transmission Plot. I think I got that right. Don't always get it right. Second one was Good Morning Spider. That's the one that got me into him. I love that album. I haven't listened to it in a long time, although I started listening to it really loud in the car last night again, and it sounded really really good. I'd forgotten how powerful it is. That's the album I absolutely love. That's one that got me into him. I saw him on that tour, um, and actually that was a tour. I don't think I realized it at the time. I think I found out later that he had started out in a wheelchair and was in leg braces. I think when I saw him, I didn't notice it though. I mean, I remember it was in a very small space, and I don't remember him moving around a lot. And he might have sat in a chair, but that wasn't completely abnormal for some of those more intimate shows that I saw at the time, like singer songwriter type stuff. I wish I could remember more about the show, to be honest. I should check YouTube and see if there's a video of a show on that tour so I can get an idea, maybe trigger some memories of what it was like. But the reason why he was in a wheelchair, the reason why he was in leg braces is because on the '95 tour that he did after his first record, Viva Submarine, I'll just leave it at that and won't try it again. He toured with Radiohead. He opened up for Radiohead, which is a pretty sweet gig, right? They're on the Benz tour, and they get Mark Sparklehorse to open up for them. But he apparently took a mixture of antidepressants and drugs and alcohol. Some people paint it more as a mixing those things, and some people paint it more as like an overdose. I don't think he's 100% sure, but he basically passed out and passed out in such a weird way where it cut off circulation to his legs, and he was lying there for hours. And when they found him and they took him to the hospital and they tried to, I guess, straighten out his legs, he had a heart attack, and I think he was dead for like 3 minutes or something like that. And came back, and luckily, he took some time off, whatever, and then he wrote and recorded "Good Morning Spider," and a lot of the songs kind of deal with that hospital stay. I think it probably affected him. Some of his family and friends, I guess, will say that he started to have more depressive episodes after that happened. Definitely kind of a like really sensitive soul, and you can feel it in his music and his lyrics. There's a depth there if you're willing to look for it and listen. And it was just really interesting what he does to a sound. Like, this is a guy that creates most of it. I think the first two records were recorded completely by himself, and he just writes these really good songs, really good lyrics, and then it really undergoes a lot of different. Each song, I think, undergoes a lot of different kind of versions, and him playing around with vintage equipment, vintage microphones, things he finds, old keyboards, things he finds at the dump apparently. He's got a lot in common with Tom Waits that way, where he's finding found instruments and using them in new ways. But he also tends to really distort his voice, and sometimes it's really, really almost hard to tell what he's saying, and other times it's like very, very clear, but still, there's always some kind of effects on it. But he sounds very close to you a lot of times. Even when he's distant, he sounds like close. It's this intimacy of it kind of makes you want to like lean in and listen. Um, and yeah, it's a very solitary kind of album. At least those first two, I think, are. Although they've got some kind of rock songs on them too. Someday I Will Treat You Good is probably about as conventional as he gets, and that was on the first record. It got played a little bit on college radio, and I'm pretty sure that second record, Good Morning Spider, the song they probably played the most was Sick of Goodbyes. But I don't know if I ever heard that on the radio at the time, independent radio, college radio. But then he made an album called It's a Wonderful Life. It gained a wider following. It was more of a production with other people involved, not just himself. He actually reached out to Tom Waits and collaborated with him on a song. And it's a little bit more, it dives into like chamber pop, and it's still got his very much his signature sound, but it's about as commercial as he gets. But nowhere near like trying to write a hit song or really striving for commercial success. It's still very much in his world. He's got PJ Harvey on there as well, some different guest stars, and then he kind of disappears for a while. Apparently, I watched this documentary. It's amazing, called "This Is Sparklehorse." Highly recommend it. You can get it on Vimeo. You have to pay for it. I think it's like $6 or $7 or something like that. Totally worth it. And definitely really provides some nice insights into who he was. But the album he made after "It's a Wonderful Life," I guess it took a long time. He had kind of, I think he was in trouble with his marriage, and he went to live on top of a mountain, I believe in Virginia. It was pretty cut off from other people, and stayed up there for quite a while. And he kind of had to be coaxed off of it to make another record and get back into things. He's also living in like poverty. I mean, making it really, really hand to mouth, and not what you'd expect for a guy who opened up for Radiohead and then later REM on a stretch of one of their tours. But Danger Mouse was involved, got him down from the mountain, got him recording again, and he put out an album called Dreamt for Light Years in the Belly of the Mountain. I believe that's what it's called. It's kind of like the first one where sometimes you don't get it right. That one, by that time, I think I don't know, it didn't do a whole lot for me. I remember I loved "Don't Take My Sunshine Away" and a couple of their songs. I really need to go back and listen to it. But unfortunately, that's kind of where the story had ended, with the exception of "Dark Night of the Soul," which is something he also worked with Danger Mouse, where he had they collaborated on songs, and then they had other people pretty much sing lead, sometimes collaborating with Mark, but a lot of times just taking the lead. And that, I think, was really frustrating for him because it took forever for it actually to come out. And I think it held things up a little bit. And after that, I think he probably fell into another funk, but finally decided he was going to record another record, and had recorded with Steve Albini, had those tapes back to his place, and apparently I was going through a divorce and moved from the mountain back to, I can't remember honestly, West Virginia or back to Virginia maybe. But anyway, he was he had done the recording with Steve Albini in Chicago, and then he went back and was tinkering around with them like he usually does with his albums. A lot of home recording involved. And then he was set to go to another studio, I believe, to work with it and take it to the next level. And he died. He committed suicide. And so nobody heard any of these things for a long time. I guess he had talked to his brother and had these lengthy conversations, from what I've read, about how he wanted this album, the one he was working on, to be more pop and a little bit more conventional, and have songs that were similar to what he was listening to over and over at the time, which was the Kinks, Village Green, and then the Beatles' Revolver. And but then he dies, and his brother, who was oftentimes in Sparklehorse and collaborated with him and was close to him, and his sister-in-law, also very close to him and worked with him in bands too, they couldn't deal with it. His brother couldn't even listen to music apparently for quite a while, and they thought that all the music that he was recording was just the instrumentals, because somebody, I think, that was involved in the Chicago session had a tape or gave them the tapes, and it was just instrumental. So sometime later, I think it's like 2017, Mark's brother Matt becomes the executor of his estate, I believe, and starts going through and digitizing, hiring people, making sure that everything that he worked on is digitized and preserved. And while he's doing that, he discovers these multi-track tapes, and as they're archiving like each, I guess, different parts of the tape, different tracks, within a song, they notice that there's some tracks on there that are vocal tracks, and that he did actually do vocal tracks. Then they find notebooks, they find sketchings, they find track listings of the songs that were supposed to be on this album. It had a title, Bird Machine, track listing, all that stuff, and they start finding all these songs with lyrics. Some were in better shape, almost like done, ready to go, and some were a little bit more rudimentary, or you could tell that Mark wanted to do more work on them. And then they decided they took it very, very seriously. They did not want to do anything that he would not be proud of, and they wanted to keep it as close as possible to his vision. And so his brother and sister-in-law, I guess, hired all these people that had worked with him before, and just really, really took their time to make sure that these tracks were treated right and done in a way that would honor Mark's intention, not make him into something else. And now we have this new Sparklehorse record, which is just kind of crazy to think about. And I don't know if it's the time that it's 13 years later now, that makes such a difference. If I'd heard this album, if this had come out like a couple years after he passed away, I don't know if it would have been all the suicide and all that would have been fresher. The album might have taken on more of a really dark tone to it, or had that feeling. I think that's got to be a little bit of it. But unlike a lot of posthumous albums or albums that came out, especially if you think about, taking your own life, an artist taking their own life, and then what came out afterwards. I mean, I have a real hard time listening to Closer by Joy Division. It just is, to me, it's the most depressing record I've ever heard. Now, someday I think maybe I'll get into it and it won't be that way anymore. And I'm kind of the same way. I was that way for years with Nirvana. Even though In Utero was recorded before he killed himself, that album especially and it's my favorite one, was really, really hard for me to listen to. And definitely the Unplugged. In fact, I didn't listen to Nirvana for years because I was too close to it all. And I just always thought of the end. I could not see the songs for what they were. And I honestly don't even listen to them hardly to this day because of that. Although every once in a while I'll crank up In Utero and it does sound amazing. But a lot of the albums that come out are more like collections of songs after somebody dies, collections of songs that never made it onto records, or all kinds of demo material, stuff like that. There's been a few cases where artists go in and try to honor the person and finish songs. The obvious ones are like the Beatles when they did it with Free as a Bird, and what's the other one? Real Love. And I don't know. Is that really honoring John Lennon, or is that more of a cash grab to promote the whatever that was with the archive, with the anthology in 1995? I don't. To me, that's a little bit different. It's like, okay, yeah, let's see what we can do with these old recordings. But these were all songs he was working on. He saw it as an album. He saw it as a cohesive thing, and I'm kind of blown away by it. I bought it last Friday when it came out. I wanted to wait to listen to it. I knew it was going to be I thought it was going to be really intense. And I started playing it on Saturday morning at kind of a low volume. And at first, I must admit, I was like, what is this? I was frustrated by it because, he does use a lot of noise and a lot of vintage equipment, and he kind of obscures his voice and all kinds of stuff. And that first song, It'll Never Stop, is like a rock song, but it's like very much like the fuzz is really, really heavy on it. And I had it down at a low volume because it was morning and all that. And I was just like, I don't know if I can get into this, And I kind of kept letting it play, and by the time I got to a song called Falling Down, I was like, holy crap, this is really, really powerful stuff. And I've listened to it nonstop since. I think I've listened to it probably 6 times now, at least, maybe 7. And I'll tell you, like, playing it like in the daytime at a decent volume, like, it just sounds amazing, and it sounds great at night too. But probably the times that have really transformed it the most for me is when I've actually looked at the lyrics. And if there's one complaint about this, like, I love how they honored him. It's white. It's like using what they had, right? They had him, this is his handwriting, write out Bird Machine. They have these little sketches in the liner notes of like, suns and stars and stuff like that, and the titles of the songs. I believe that all came from him and his handwriting, but they didn't add anything. All you have in here is like who played what on each song. And they got like all the people that collaborated with him before. They wanted to be as faithful as they possibly could to bring these songs out and really make it something that Mark Linkous would deem a Sparklehorse record and be proud of. I mean, they really were wanting to do that. But yeah, so there's very little information as far as lyrics go. There's none, except there's a quote on the back which I love. But that to my knowledge, I've not found that in the lyrics. So one of the probably the best listens I had where it really started to open up is when I pulled up Apple Music. I was playing the record, but I pulled up Apple Music and I hit the on my phone and I was hitting the little lyrics, view lyrics, and was surprised and really glad that the lyrics were on there. And holy crap, is that ever like a revelation? Looking at those, because it's like so much more powerful once you actually get into like some of the things that he's saying. And again, I thought that it would be like this like really depressive stuff that would really bring me down. I mean, he talks about death, he talks about the cycle of life, he talks about these things in such a beautiful way. Though he talks about nature goes on, people don't, he won't. He has this brilliant, I absolutely love it, this brilliant Civil War type lyric. Confederate river ghosts, come lie down. Inhale the earth's breath, that's your bed now. Year of hummingbird and quasar. The cannonball rather, has flown its arc now, to be found by the plow years from now. He does a lot of that, a lot of imagery with birds and animals and sunrises, and the hawk that I used to talk to and watch him spiral in the vents found a wife, and then there was two, and away and off they went. Now the bed is feeling cold now, in the vacuum of the snow. There ain't no one here to hold now, as the winter's razors blow. The winter's razors blow is like, that's a hell of a line. I lived in Minneapolis for a long time. I've experienced some serious winters, and the winter's razors blow is probably a pretty damn good way of describing a really cold winter. But I think he's also probably getting at the fact that he was alone and going through a divorce. But who knows? Everybody thinks that singer songwriters always write about themselves, and that's not always the case. None of the lyrics wouldn't matter at all, though, if it wasn't just a really good album. But I think the thing I want to get at is that it's a positive record. Yeah, it can deal with these serious things, but this feels almost like a ray of light to me. It's a very thought provoking album, especially if you get into the lyrics. But it wouldn't be much if the songs weren't there. And I think he does kind of do that pop thing, at least on a handful of songs on here. I mean, there's songs like Evening Star Supercharger and Falling Down that are super catchy and hooky. And you kind of wonder, okay, would he be happy with this record? I think he would, but he was going to do more recording, so you kind of wonder if where it might have gone. Would it have got approached more of that general like pop record? And I doubt it, and I don't really even want to think that, because I listen to this record and not a note seems out of place. It seems like a Sparklehorse record through and through. I cannot imagine honoring the guy better. They did a hell of a job. Of course, I would love to hear the before versions of demos and what they did, just from a curiosity standpoint. But there's no part of me that goes, oh yeah, that's so out of place, or ooh, I wouldn't have done that, or why did they choose to do that? You can't tell. It all sounds exactly the way you would think it would sound on a Sparklehorse record. And I'm very glad it exists. Songs like The Skull of Lucia, Hello Lord, super powerful. Everyone's Gone to Sleep. And then there's some fun songs. There's I Fucked It Up is just like a little rocker. He had those a lot, like Pig and other songs from Sparklehorse, especially early on. And he has this here with I Fucked It Up, and especially the Robin Hitchcock cover. I'm a big Robin Hitchcock fan. I feel weird that I did not know this song called Listening to the Higsons. I think I know why. It's on the live album, Gotta Let This Hen Out, I think it's called. And that's like a live album from 1985, The Egyptians. And I remember trying to listen to it and just being like, this doesn't sound very good. I'll just listen to a studio version of a Robin Hitchcock record. And I never really played it all the way through. I don't think that song was new to me, and now I've listened to Robin's and I found the cool video he did for it. I just had no idea that it even existed. But it's like kind of banged out and very Sparklehorse sounding way, but it just totally rocks and it's like super hooky and fun. And there are moments like that on here, and there's just moments of exquisite beauty and sad moments, but like nothing that depresses me really, nothing that brings me down. This album brings me up and just keeps like kind of begging to be played again. I think it's one of his best records, better records, best record. I don't know. You know, I haven't listened to the other ones in so long, and I'm really looking forward to hearing them. Listen to bits and pieces. Like I listened to Good Morning Spider really loud. Last night. At least part of it, like the first four songs, I think. But I have not spent a lot of time with Sparklehorse, but lately. I think sometimes when artists do this, like the Nirvana thing, I'm disturbed by it. But this is not that way. This is like there's a whole bunch of positivity here, even in the darkness, and I love it, and I'm glad it exists, and I think it's probably up there with all four of the other ones, five if you want to count Dark Night of a Soul. I cannot remember or could not recommend it more. Bird Machine, Sparklehorse, check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed, especially if you're already a Sparklehorse fan. If you're not, I don't know. It still might be a good place to start. Just it's one of those records you gotta lean into a little bit, but it rewards you for that. It's a Wonderful Life is probably the most commercial. That's a good place to start too. People love that one. A lot of people say that's their best. But Bird Machine, definitely check it out. Thanks, everyone.